Hey y'all, welcome to this week's episode of Race Kiki with Jonathan Lee. This week I'm having a conversation with a young human I met while playing drag bingo at Pieces in the Village. Her name is Rizza Collin. She works with Exodus Transitional Community. They're located in Harlem. I hadn't heard of the community before. I didn't know their vision. Um, it's incredible and I can't wait to be a part. But listen to this conversation. Rizza has some incredible insights and she tells a real fun story. So, drink it up, like and subscribe, and remember, we can't fix a problem we're afraid to talk about. So let's talk about racism. And may I present to you Rizza Collin with Exodus Transitional Community. Be amazing. Oh, that's a new one. Hey, Rizza,
Oh,
welcome to Waste Kiki with Jonathan Lee.
hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I think you're probably the one of the people in the younger demographic I've spoken with because you're in your very early 20s, yes?
My late 20s,
Oh,
actually.
oh my God, your late 20s. I barely remember them. Um, and I met you at Pieces after you graduated with your master's degree.
Yes. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What did you
Yeah.
study?
Pastoral mental health counseling.
Oh, you're the perfect person to ask this question.
Yes. Yes.
So, when did you learn about race?
Wow, that's such a loaded question.
I know.
Um, no, yeah. Let's see. So, a little bit about me. I grew up with my aunt and uncle, and my aunt is a Filipino woman.
Hmm.
Um, she's from Cebu City, and she was pen pals with this Ukrainian American man.
Hmm.
And he's like, she was 25 at the time, and he was 50.
Okay.
And so you see where this story is going.
Uh-huh.
So, basically she married into the country, and they expedited her citizenship because he had a child at the time who
Hmm.
had like just lost his mom. Well, not just, but um, that was the point of him pen paling. He was trying to find like a mom figure or whatever
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
his son, and they let the customs people know, and they were like, "Oh yeah, the son needs a mom, so bring her over or whatever." So it's like she thinks she did it the right way. I don't know. Anyways,
Choices, but
right.
yeah.
So and then she brought over like her whole family, including my bio mom, right? So
Hmm.
um when I was like 1 month old, my real mom was like, I can't, like, you got to take care of this child. And
Okay.
so I was raised by my aunt who looks like me, but she like was never there. And
Hmm.
then my uncle who didn't look like me, but he was always there.
Okay.
So it was whenever we went to the park, people were like, what? He's like your grandpa, like I don't understand what this is. And
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
so um so that's kind of like how I was introduced to it. And also like my older brother, he's like 4 years older than I am, and he
Hmm.
lived with my aunt and uncle too,
Hmm.
before I came along, and he's way darker than I am, and I think he has a different father. Well, no, I know he has a different father, but
Hmm.
like my bio mom's like, oh, he's Lebanese, and stuff like that, and like the dude that she says that is his father, like doesn't look like him, so it's like
Hmm.
maybe it could be, but then it's like so there's all of that. And like when he was out with my uncle, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
totally different, like when I was out with my uncle, it was like confusion. But like when he was out, it was like like uncomfortable. Um
In what
like
way?
well, my brother and I talk about it a lot. Um and he just grew up feeling completely differently than I did about the confusion from
Mhm.
others. Like for him, it was more like he internalized it and was like, "Don't look at me." Like he doesn't like when people look at him now, because it's just that's what he thinks they're seeing, and that's probably what they are seeing. Like that he's just like a black man, you know. And so, but like when people look at me, it's more like I know they're like intrigued and want to know more. And
Mhm.
like I'm open to that, but my brother is like closed off from that. And so, yeah.
Where
Um,
did you grow up?
I in the Lower East Side.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so Lower East Side, white, older uncle,
Mm-hmm.
uh, half his age aunt, choices, love is love, whatever, no judgment. Um, and then you and your brother
Mm-hmm.
in the household. It was just the four of you?
Well, no. So when I was born, he got shipped off to like suburban New Jersey. And I have a sister out there too who's like 11 years older than I am, and
Uh-huh.
she's fully Filipino, like me and my younger brother too. So, um, that was also interesting for him too, like to grow up in like white suburbia. Well, it was like not really white in the town, like I mean, it is, but there's more like Costa Ricans and like other people and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So like it's just like a whole like mishmash of things that we grew up around. But yeah.
How did that shape your view of the world?
Um it was weird. I think I didn't really have a problem with white people until like much later on, like where they started doing trifling things and I was like and like some of the things like I didn't really notice until I was older, like way older. You know what I mean?
Like what?
Like there was this like one time where okay, so I don't even know if it was like all right. So like in preschool, right? There
Hmm.
was there was like the first day of preschool where we all like picked like a color of like where we wanted to go, like what room we wanted to be in for like the rest of the year or whatever.
Hmm.
And so I chose blue. I was like, I already got a red bag, so I'm gonna choose blue.
Okay.
And so it was very odd because everyone in the blue room was pretty much Hispanic, like or Latino or whatever Latinx.
Hmm.
And
Latinx.
so it was like that. And then there was like, I just remember the orange room was basically just Asian people, like so many Asians. And I was
Okay.
like, am I supposed to be in this other room? Like, you know? And so, and I'm like, wait, was it really the color thing? Because like, did they all choose orange and they all happen to be Asian? And like, I,
Oh,
so I was like,
okay.
or because like my last name is Cologne, right? Because Philippines was colonized by the Spaniards for like 500 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm just like, okay, was it because of my last name or like you know, like looking back on it, right? Like, yeah, I had like this illusion of choice, but then I'm like, did everyone choose? Um, and there was like the red room was like filled with white people. So I was like, wait, what? Like, what's going on?
And were the kids choosing these colors, or were their colors chosen for the kids?
I, I don't know because when I chose it, like I actually, they were like, what do you want? And I was like, blue. And so I went to the blue room and
How
it
interesting.
was just really odd. And yes. And so, and the only reason why I can, well, why I even like look back on it was because like when I got to high school, right? It was my freshman year and I was like dead set on taking Spanish.
Hmm.
And so when I got my schedule, they had put me in French. And I was like, wait a minute. I know I specifically chose Spanish. So when
Hmm.
I went to the administration office, it was like, why is my schedule saying that I need to go to French? Because I would like to go to Spanish. And they were like, oh, you know, it's not fair because you can barely speak Spanish because your last name. And I was like, shut the fuck up. That's not, sorry, I don't know if I can curse, but I was
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
shut the fuck up. Like, are you serious? But I fought it and I was like, yo, I like don't even know. Like I knew Spanish because like my chosen family sometimes is Puerto Rican, some of them
Hmm.
are Dominican, like, you know. So like I knew like baby Spanish of like certain things,
Hmm. Hmm.
but like I'm not fluent at all. Even now, like even after I took Spanish for 4 years, because I fought in my one
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
to be in Spanish. Um, yeah, like I still don't really have fluency in it, but yeah.
So that just, it sounds like you were walking through, or it's just what I'm hearing is all of the administrators are trying to label you Latinx as opposed to Filipino, where you actually are.
Right. Yeah.
I've actually heard that before from Filipino friends of mine who have gone through that same identity of crisis when coming over here.
Yeah. And you know, like I think culturally, like we're similar. Um, but like at the same time, it is distinct, you know?
Hmm.
And like whenever I have to fill out forms, I'm like, I don't really know if I can say non-Hispanic because like, you know, like in my lineage, yeah, there's Spanish
Probably,
in there
yeah.
in there
Hmm.
somewhere. And, you know, so there's that piece too about it. And I just feel more comfortable too. Like,
I get that.
you
Um,
know,
does that, speaking of, does that with the climate of the world, if you will, right now, how
mhm.
is it navigating the world as a female identifying human of Asian descent?
It's kind of interesting because like when certain things happen, like when I go to other bars that are not pieces or like karma,
Uh-huh.
or like you know, I like when people do trifling things, they
Hmm. Hmm.
expect that I won't say anything
Yeah.
and are super surprised when I do and when it's as loud as I do it, you know? So, because you know, like the stereotype is like, oh, Asian woman, submissive. There you
She's
go.
not going to
Like,
say anything.
right.
Yeah.
So, there's there's a lot that happens, and I don't know. It brings out a lot of anger and resentment, and you know, um, and it's hard because like you're drunk, so it's like your decision making is not that great when it happens. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, but yeah, and then like other times like in professional spaces like since I went to like private school and like you know I was like afforded a lot of opportunities where like I can learn to like navigate and maneuver in certain ways where like I could say you got me fucked up, but like in a professional way,
You
you know?
know, I've had my most complicated exchanges in professional settings. And when I'm out recreationally being myself, I can reach you for filth and be done with it. I can say
Mhm.
whatever in the hell I want to and be, it's all okay, bitch. I'm, you know, no matter, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say and you're going to walk away. I'll walk away or what have you. But
Mhm.
I find the most challenging is when I'm in those professional settings, when I'm um, standing in front of a boss. I had a boss many, many moons ago, female boss, very large bosom, who would drape them over my shoulder
Oh.
like as often as she could. And every time I'm trying to find a way to negotiate my way out of this particular situation. And then when I had had enough, when I finally had enough of her, it was like, I
Mm.
can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
Um, she then went to our boss and
Mhm.
reported me for sexual
Oh
harassment.
no, HR involved.
And my only save for that was a friend of mine who worked at the same company, and we were of the same job level. He
Okay.
said, "Well, I've seen her do these things."
Mhm.
They listened to his word because he was a white man.
Right.
So there have been, I found my most challenging situations in professional environments, namely in corporate environments,
Mhm. Mhm.
because that's just wrought with problems.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Now, you studied what in school?
Pastoral mental health counseling.
Tell me what that's about.
So it's the intersection between mental health and
Hmm.
spirituality.
Okay.
So basically, um, like in the counseling world, you're supposed to look at the whole person.
Hmm.
Um, but in like traditional like social work and like psychology and stuff like that, um, spirituality gets left out of the conversation.
Hmm.
And my program specifically puts it back into the conversation, basically. Like, so we don't, like, I wouldn't bring it up in a counseling session, right? Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, you know, like, and maybe I would in the intake to see like where you're at with that, but like I
Hmm.
won't be like, oh, remember you said that thing, and like, so you do you want to talk about that? Like, it's only if you bring it up, and like if um something is like if your issues are, I don't like to say issues, but like if your issue is like deeply connected with the spiritual, like um so like I do a lot of trauma work, and like if somebody had been like if the betrayal had come from early on with an experience with the spiritual, like we
Hmm.
can talk
Hmm.
about that. Um
You
religion.
know, I've often had a complicated relationship with religion
Mm,
in the traditional sense, because religion, in my opinion, has been used for many of the atrocities in the world.
right, yeah.
And the one I'm thinking of most viscerally is slavery.
Mm-hmm.
We used a book written by white men about the subjugation of non-white folks, and then we install a white figure in the form of Jesus
Mm,
to reaffirm the superiority of the white race.
mm-hmm.
And that is the doctrine that we all walk walk around America with the basic understanding of.
Mm-hmm.
And And I think that that particular doctrine, that particular thought process is part of why we are in a flaming garbage fire that we are right now.
Well, I just want to push back a little bit on
Oh,
that.
good. I like it.
So like with any because like I don't look at the Bible as or any of the texts because I've read like a couple
Mhm.
and I don't look at any of them as like the answer. Like they all have answers within them and
Mhm.
so that's how I look at it. And with any kind of text where you're looking for answers, you have the ability to interpret things however you want to. And if you have a group of people who are reading the same text and in the same rooms and sorry,
Mhm.
in the same area, um, you you find consensus on certain things and you interpret them in those ways. Like
Right.
if you go all the way back to the beginning of Christianity, one of the first converts when they left the area that Jesus was in, because they went all to evangelize and stuff like that. One of
Mhm.
the first areas and very important part of the church at the time was Ethiopia. And
Mhm.
they um they embraced Christianity early on.
Okay.
So um and then from there like it probably I don't know like maybe spread maybe not right like so but um so like when people say like oh like Christianity was only spread through colonization, that's not the only way, but also that is a big part of the way. And I've struggled with it myself because um Filipinos didn't we didn't have that religion.
Mm-mm.
um and like some of us were Hindus, some of us were Muslims, some of us were like we had our own mythology pre-colonization, right?
Mhm.
And so I agree with you wholeheartedly in the fact that like many atrocities have been like perpetrated in the name of God.
Mhm.
And it's like it's a form of trauma. Like, all
It's
of
a
it
form
is
of trauma. That's
traumatic, right?
yes.
So it's like it happens to whole countries. It happened
Mhm.
here. We've
It's
inherited
happening
it.
currently.
Yeah, right now.
Yes.
And so this is another like this could be a whole other podcast of like like because how this is about race, like this could be a whole other
That's
podcast of
what
how
I
religion
think
has fucked
that,
everything.
what's really interesting, I mean to cut you off, but what I find most interesting is our I think Martin Luther, Dr. King said it, the most segregated hour in America is the
Mm-hmm.
hour on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
because we it's so complicated to be I don't know. I find that the way religion has been used, a lot of the ways in this country has been as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been used to embolden a lot of people into, well, embolden is a wrong word. I want to use indoctrinate a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people into a cult of personality that has both positive and negative effects on the community at large. Look at me dancing around words. I think that it's we're this is bad. We're where we are is bad. And every day when I turn on the news and it's just getting worse, it's like an end of days movie that I'm watching that
Absolutely.
unfortunately we all have to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening is by us not communicating the issue head on and dancing around the issue, we're not fixing anything. And by us allowing foolishness, or as you like to call trifling, haven't heard that word in years, but allowing that trifling interactions, both when you're out at the bar with your girls, your boys, your humans, having a great time, when you're at work and you're just trying to pay your bills and do the work that you know you're supposed to be doing, and then you have to deal with this foolishness from someone who's old enough to have known better. However, the reason why they don't know better is because we don't talk about it. So if I don't talk about race and you don't talk about race and they don't talk about race, but we sit around our kitchen tables and we make up shit that we saw in a movie or we read in a study from 1970s, that's not real. And then we go out into the world and we interact with people who look like you, who look like me, who look like other people other than us. And we say some foolishness out of our mouth, and then you get hit and then you get mad. So there's a way around that, right? We all tend to be smart people. We can talk our way out of it.
Yeah.
And so how do you think, young human, how would you like to negotiate the world as a young human trying to make their way through the universe? And I mean that in the concept of, I know that you're, or I don't know, I'm just speaking, in your proud ethnic identity.
So in the context of like being me, like how am I going to navigate the world?
Yes. How is your concept of navigating the world as your ethnic identity?
So it's I don't think of it as navigating the world in my ethnic identity until I have to, right? Like, so basically, when I wake up in the morning, when I go to work, when I do all the things that I do, I'm moving from a place of love.
Yes, I believe that.
At most junctures in time. But when a dude in yoga class comes up to me and asks me if I can read Asian, then I'm just like, okay.
Has someone actually said that to you?
Yes, actually, that's a true story. Somebody came up.
Can you read Asian?
And I was like, what is Asian? Like, because there was something on the wall and it was like in like I don't know, because like I don't read that. Right. So then I was like, no, I can't read that. And then he was like, oh, don't worry, it's hard. And I was like, yeah, especially if you're not from there, bro. Like, and then he was like, oh, where are you from? And I was like, okay, here, right fucking here.
Where are you really from?
Yes. And then I was like, oh, Jersey. And then he was like, no, like, but where are you from? And I'm like, so it
and the follow-up question is, why is that important?
Right. And then people do this thing, right? When they find out where my parents are from, they're like, oh, I have a friend from there and they're really nice and hospitable and they like to party and like, whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, all of those things are probably true about those.
They're like, is she also a nurse?
Right. Yeah.
And what other stereotype are you going to use?
I've gotten that a lot too. Is your mom a nurse? Are you a nurse? Like, no, I'm not. So, and I think it affected my career decision too. Like, I want to be a nurse. And I was a babysitter for a long time. So
Uh-huh.
I had to fall into one or two of those things. So I did. And like, um, but yeah, like I feel like I'm just me. And like as we were talking in pieces about like nobody is like a monolith, like none of the
Yeah.
races are monoliths.
We're
So
we're just people walking around. And if you what's really interesting, that my opening question, when did you learn about race? When I ask it to BIPOC, we have a story.
mm-hmm.
When I ask it to white folks, they have a story about us. Because what I'm learning is white folks see themselves as individuals and they
Mm,
see us as BIPOC.
mm.
They don't consider white a race. So if white isn't a white is normal, it's
Yeah, it's
it's
like
it's the
the
normal.
default. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we homogenize things, when we make things accessible for mainstream, mainstream is a coded word for also white.
Mm.
Um, but when we make it mainstream, we suck out all the soul of
Right.
that's not what I mean, but you know what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
We make it as
Water it
neutral as possible
down. Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
that it can be dissected by those of us in the center of the country.
Yeah. I agree.
So what I'm learning, and I've had that question, where are you from? I was like, I'm from Mississippi. No,
Mm.
where are you really from? I'm still from Mississippi.
Right.
Where's your family from? They're still from Mississippi. Oh, but what, you're not black. What the fuck does that mean?
What? Yeah. What is that? Like,
What does that mean?
what are you talking about?
And when I've been with my Filipino friends, so where are you from? Oh, do you speak Tagalog? Like,
Tagalog.
yeah,
No, wait. Tagalog.
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 Yeah, Or you know what they say about Asian women.
I don't. I don't know.
I don't know. You tell me.
Right. What are
Like,
y'all saying?
I was like, tell me. I would love to know. I'm taking notes. Where's my notepad?
What they out
And it's like, what they out here on these streets saying?
here?
And then my favorite is when you say that and then you look at them and you force them to say what you don't say. You force them to say it. I was like, oh, I didn't know. What do they say?
Mm-hmm.
And then you stumble it out, and then you're like, wait, who's saying that? Who is saying that? Ew, that's so disgusting. I'm gonna go now.
Who would do that? You're
I
right.
know. Jeez.
Or like the other thing that happens is somebody will be like, I've been there before. And I'm like, okay, you've been there way more times than I have because I've not even been there. So, um, congrats. Like, I don't know. Did you have fun? Like,
Okay. I've never been with an Asian girl before.
yeah, just leave that there. You're not gonna do it now either.
I would like my things. I would like to leave now. Where's an adult? I feel bad. Yeah. And but in those instances,
Hmm.
what happens is I have never in my life felt emboldened enough to go to someone and say such
Right.
disrespectful shit. I've
Right.
never in my life. And I've
Yes.
been I've been drunk in public a lot of times.
Yeah, me too. Never that has never crossed my mind.
I have never sent it to someone on a chat. I've never sent to someone in an email. I've just never done that. Because when I look at a person, I see a person. I don't see someone that should be doing something for me. I see a fellow human.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like those of us who can do that to someone don't actually view you as
A human.
as a
Like a
human.
fellow
And
human.
and what drives me crazy is when men who are the products of a woman, you have I have a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of sisters. I have nieces. I have a grandma. And
Right.
I know that in some, you are somebody's daughter,
Right.
somebody's sister. You
Yes.
may or may not be somebody's mother. You're somebody's auntie. But when it baffles me. It baffles me.
It has to be some sort of cognitive dissonance because it's just like you would never like, okay, so my last ex, right? He asked me to be his property. And he's biracial, like, and his mom is black. So I was like, bro, your mom is black. Like, if I told her right now that you had said that to me, like, do you think that she would be proud of you right now? What if somebody said that to your niece? Like, what is wrong with you actually that you would think to even say that to someone? Like, that is crazy to me.
I hope y'all broke up like immediately thereafter.
Okay, well, no, but like, yeah.
You were like, no, the dick was
But
kind of good, girl. I get it. I get it. I get it. We've been there.
but anyways, no, it should have been, yeah, ended right there. But yeah, like I just it's the way people's minds work just is so fascinating, which also brought me to like my career choice as well. Like because I just like when people speak and I see how they're like the structure of like what's going on up there, it's just like, wow, I didn't even know it could do that. So like thank you for that information and like how do we move forward now? Sometimes we can't and like I'm learning more to like not be as forgiving about things and like just be like okay bye like
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like, again, another quote, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
And I say it to everybody, if you're around me and something stupid falls out of your mouth, I may or may not tell you what the fuck you said. Now, if I do you the fortune of sharing with you the error of your ways, hey, you probably shouldn't say that for these following reasons. And you don't listen to me. And you go out into the world, you meet the wrong person at the wrong time, and they whoop your ass. I'm not concerned for your ass being beat. I'm concerned for the person who beat your ass.
Right. If they're gonna go somewhere.
I'm trying very hard to keep them out of jail. I'm trying very hard to keep their records clean from the way we have to negotiate the world is exhausting.
It is.
And there are times when you're just walking through your day and you've just had it. And you catch that one person opens their mouth and may say the wrong thing to you. And it's terrible. And if you unload, it may be too much for that person. And maybe they're all like, oh my God, I didn't mean it. Oh my God, I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I wasn't trying to be racist. Well, you shouldn't have fucking said it.
You did. You were though. You were being racist.
Yeah. I don't mean to be racist, but
and then it negates everything that came before it. So you are. So stop it.
So stop it. So stop it. So is English your first language? Yeah. You speak English so well. Yeah.
Yes. And then like even with like my Latinx community, right? Like they also like when I'm with them, like their parents are like, oh my God, you speak Spanish. I'm like, yeah, like, and they're like, oh, Janita. And I'm like, no, but yeah, like, no. Like,
that's fun.
Quincy eyes too, stop it. No, but
No, that's good. That's good. I don't know. I'm very excited for where we are now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm seeing a lot more people doing a lot more pushback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because to be quite frank, we've been in this fucking freak show forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the temperature has been higher and lower depending on the time of depending on the decade. Right
Mm-hmm.
now we are in 1965 fever pitch racism at this particular moment, and there's only one of two things that can happen. Both of them are going to be volatile, but there's only one of two things that can happen. Either it's going to get better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a lot more of us that have to not allow status quo to happen, not be erased again,
Mm-hmm.
and not settle for the um, compromises that we've
Like
had
the
to
little
make thus
peanuts that
far.
they give us every now and again.
Yes, we've been settling for a real long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still on my when I found this fact out because I think I knew it casually most of my life, but when I saw it on paper how little women are paid as compared to
Oh,
men,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then when you break that down by race, it's even worse.
It's so much worse. Yeah.
And then I think back as to all of the single Black women and single brown women that I've known in my life
Mm-hmm.
and how hard they work and the responsibilities on their shoulder. And me realizing that as a Black man, I'm making more money than them with, yeah, it's just too, and I'm still barely getting by. And I know that I am.
Mm-hmm.
So where are they? And by barely getting by, I mean I was living luxuriously, but that was me by myself being decadent every day. But I don't know how you could raise a family of five, a family of four, you being the only breadwinner, making less money than I did at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's impossible. How are you gonna pay your bills? How are you gonna? It's too much.
It is a lot. Yeah.
But but that's just a thing, and it's a thing because it's just the thing that we allowed to have happen
Yeah.
because we
And
put
like,
men in charge.
it's so funny because I work with youth, right? And I was
Uh-huh.
talking to like a younger person than I am. So like, um, and they were like, oh, like the way that the world is going, it's really bad. And like we shouldn't even be here anymore, right? Like, and I was trying to like, extract more about that, right? And I
Mm-hmm,
was like,
mm-hmm.
what do you mean? And then they were talking about how like, like dogs and bunnies and bats, like they don't, you know, they just live. Like they don't worry about bills, they don't worry about what shoes you're wearing, they don't worry about um like what your hair looks like or whatever the fuck, right? They just live. And they were just like so fed up with like why we can't just do that. Like why everyone is like focused on like all these little differences and like all this other stuff. And I was like, well, maybe if you put sentience in a bat, like maybe they do something similar, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
were like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, like if you give like a non-sentient being sentience and like, reasoning, right? And then they like start making things and like, building their lives or whatever. Like maybe they would make the same like things. Like, do you think the structures would be the same or whatever? And they're like, I didn't think about that. Like, maybe. And then they were like, no, because they don't wear shoes. And I was like, well, what if they made some like things for their like little wings or whatever? And like, you know, it was shiny and like the others were shinier or some shit like that. Like, you know, like, so at this point, I'm like, I'm wondering if it's just like human nature to like do things like that. Like to have differences and be like, well, I don't like that difference. I'm gonna fuck you up right now. Like just because of
I
that.
I don't know. I think that it's a human um thing to try to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And we've bred an incredibly competitive society. And it's all focused on that one thing that everybody in this country worships more than God.
Money, yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
And so, as a matter of fact, I just finished watching this New York Times piece on this black hive, black collector, black Instagram influencers
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in Atlanta. They were the first black collective house kind of thing. And they were in this 90-day incubation program. And they were like looking at all these other Instagram influencer houses, all white,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. These houses are all beautifully decked out. They have one particular young lady has 116 million Instagram followers, and
Mm.
that's just Instagram. But this is a young white lady. These
Mm-hmm.
other 6 or 7 in this collective had a combined total when they went into the house of 10 million. When they left the house, a combined total
Oh
of
my God.
17 million.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
But against these other Instagram influencers with millions and millions and millions, and now they're doing endorsement deals and all of this stuff. And I brought that up to say that not only are these kids working hard, these young humans are working hard. What's happening is one of them was he's a viral dance TikTok star.
Okay.
He invented this dance. Then all of these other affluent Instagram influencers took his dance and what have you, all
Mm-hmm.
blew up with this particular dance and never
Right.
gave this kid a
Never gave
shout
him
out.
his credit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, never gave him his flowers.
Right.
And now they are up here in the stratosphere, and this young human is
It's
down here,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
showing yet again it's the same, take our creativity
Mm-hmm.
and slap some blonde hair on
Mm-hmm.
it. And it's like a snake eating its tail. Seriously.
Yeah.
We try to make some steps, and then we think that we've made steps, and then we take a step back and we look and we're all like, nope,
We still
not
right
really. We're
here.
still exactly where we are. It's
Mm.
just the stakes are higher now.
Higher.
Now that there are wealthy people, they're wealthy BIPOC, but
Mm-hmm.
not in comparison to the rest of
Mm-hmm.
our society.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the same comparison. We are in a point where our schools are more segregated now than they were before Brown versus Board of Education. They're
Mm-hmm.
more segregated now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And our young people are getting and have always gotten the educations that their school districts can't afford.
Right. Yeah.
And for a human like you,
Mm-hmm.
raised with your proximity to whiteness, you were afforded better educational experiences than people who aren't like you.
Mm-hmm.
I was afforded fairly decent educational experiences based on where I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
the various stages of my life.
Right.
And I know that. I'm very, very thankful for that, but that doesn't make me special.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any of us special. It just
That's
makes
how
us,
I feel about it too.
yeah, it doesn't make me special. It just, I benefited from the environment in which I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
And when we, especially here in the city, or actually all over America, how we keep hearing that our crime is increasing. And but there I'm hearing incomplete stories because they say
Right.
crime's increasing and leave it at that. And then they
Yeah.
use the crime statistics from last year when we were all locked up.
Right. Yeah.
But we're not addressing
No, any of the underlying
we're not
issues.
addressing anything. We're
No.
just saying crime's up and
No.
leaving it at that. We're not
Mhm.
talking about why crime
The
is up.
causes of crimes. Yeah, like the food insecurity, the increase in substance abuse, the mental health, like all of that stuff is left out of the conversation. There's no
Yep.
context.
The
It's just
school to prison pipeline, the
right.
flooding Black and brown neighborhoods with drugs and police officers, and then labeling all of our young Black and brown children with felonies, thereby cutting them out of gainful employment.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if we're going to talk about crime, we have to talk about crime.
Mm-hmm. Like, and how you define it, because like there's criminals in freaking like Long Island who are like doing white collar crime and wage theft and like all this other embezzling bullshit and like,
And then they get a slap on the hand.
right. And then like, and or they get like time served or some bullshit. Like, you know what I mean?
Or even better, they do all of this embezzling and shit and they get like 85 years old and then they go to a federal prison and then they get a heart attack and die in 6 months. Girl, shut up. And
So,
after you've had a chance to siphon all that money away to
mhm.
your offshore account in the Caymans, so
Right.
your
And your
kid,
children are still good, your grandkids still good, everybody's still good. And and you just stole all this money from people who are struggling. Like
but then you frame it in a way that those people who are struggling, you now tell those people who are struggling,
that's their
it's
fault.
not even it's that it's that it's their fault, but it's the immigrants that are coming in. It's the Black folks that are not who are draining on their tax dollars.
Mhm.
It's the Asian women. It's the Muslim. It's the this. It's the that. It's deflecting the blame
Yeah.
and keeping all of us
It's
worker
misdirection.
bees.
Yeah.
Yes, keeping all of us worker bees griping at one another while
Mm-hmm.
they're continuing to rob us blind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought I wasn't I'm glad I'm not the only one who sees that.
No, most definitely.
Because it's
It's
just as
fucking
clear
obvious.
as
It's
day.
blatantly obvious. They're
You're
doing it
like,
in our faces.
are you watching the same show I am? Because I swear it's like a really, really, really bad movie that I don't
Mhm.
want to turn off.
Well,
Because
you
I'm
can't.
trying, I'm like trying to turn it, I'm trying to change the channel. It's like, okay, maybe if I go to sleep, the episode's gonna get a little better. It doesn't.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I turn on the news and here's Poppy Harlow with her eyebrows saying, and okay, what kind of shit are we in for now? And every morning I turn on the news, mass shootings all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how Texas is gonna fix it? Give everybody guns and not
More
licenses.
guns.
That's what fixes gun violence? More
More
guns.
guns. Just throw more
Yeah.
guns at
You know
it.
what? Guns are gonna work. That's the way to de-escalate everything.
You just need a good person with a gun.
Yeah. We need a good person with a gun.
What are you talking about? Like that doesn't
And
make any
what kind of life are you living that I need to have a gun on my hip when I go to Walmart?
uh, listen.
Well, I don't want to go to Walmart, but
The structures of people's brains are insane, and I really just need to know all that I can about them so that we can move accordingly.
it's so fascinating though.
Like
Because
it
when
is.
you watch it all coming out of the mouth and you're all like,
How did you even get to that
I was at this event
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks ago, and I this person comes up. I'm with my partner, he's a handsome white fellow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she comes up, she shakes his hand,
Okay.
and so she shakes his hand. Okay, then she extends her hand to shake mine. So
Okay.
I shake her hand, and as she pulls it back, she wipes her
No,
hand on her
she
skirt.
didn't fucking do that. Sorry.
Each and she like came up and I, again, my partner and I are talking, and then she put her hand on my shoulder for some I don't, and then here she go wiping her hand off again. I was like, why do you keep touching me if you're trying to wipe your hands off?
You should have sanitized your shoulder.
I was like, you could just stop touching me,
Right. No, I'm
or
done.
you could just stop touching me. And I couldn't say anything, but I noticed every time she did it. But I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't, I wasn't in a situation where that was the least of the things that were going on there. I
Okay.
just noted, I was like, all right, we know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if you don't want anything to do with me, trust me, I'm not losing any sleep about this.
Yeah.
I'm not at home devastated, like I can't hang out with you. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm certain that you're going to have some sort of way, some sort of feeling, some sort of conversation about
Mm-hmm.
me when I'm not thinking about you anymore,
Right. Yeah.
or you're the butt of an amusing story that I tell.
Right.
And that's where I've decided to be. And it's the most liberating thing in the world, not putting up with anybody's foolishness anymore. And I know that sometimes my mouth will get me in trouble,
Mm.
and that's okay, because if you swing, I'm delicate and what have you, but that's all right. I can lay these hands. I won't,
Right.
I won't, but I can.
Right.
We are grown-ups. That's not grown-ups. Grown-ups don't haul off and slap
Yeah.
and punch one another. That's not what civilized people do.
Mm-mm.
But if we have to get uncivil, we can go there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Classy, elegant, sophisticated.
Yeah. Wait, I have another fun
Oh my
story.
God, tell me.
Okay. So I was out with my girl and we were at this place and she had to go to the bathroom, right?
Mhm.
And we were sitting at the bar, and I was like, okay, I'll save your seat. So I put my leg up. I'm short, so like,
Mhm.
it was nice. So then um this woman comes up to me, dark hair, blue eyes, um, fair skin. She's like, oh, can I sit here? And I'm like, no, my friend's coming back. She's gonna sit here. We've been sitting here this whole time, right? And she goes, oh no, I'm just gonna sit here. And I'm like, girl, my foot is on a chair. Like, I'm trying to sit on my foot. Like, what's up? Like, so then she she proceeds to try to sit on my foot, right? And then I'm like, no, back up. Like, what are you doing? And then I think it said something like, oh, your blue eyes are not going to get you anywhere here today, or whatever. And then so her boyfriend comes up with his hands on his hips,
Of
right?
course he does. Mhm.
And he goes, what's going on here? And I'm like, I was like, your girl's trying to sit on my foot, so clearly you're not doing your job. Like, and then he was like, ah. And I looked at the next person, which also happened to be a white person, right? And I'm like, do you see this shit right here? And like, he's like, he was like, bartender, you need to get this lady out of here. And I was like, oh no, y'all aren't doing that to me.
Oh,
Like,
he was talking about you getting you out of there?
I
Mhm.
was like, oh no. And then the dude, the boyfriend with the hand on his hips, he spilled a drink on me. Like a bit, like he really like spilled a whole drink on me. So then I was like, and then, and then I grabbed like the nearest drink and I threw it at him. And then I was like, okay, my friend came back up. I was like, girl, we gotta go. Cause like I'm not getting arrested today. I had my like work shirt on. I was like, no, we need to go. Like, like I was working at
This
a gym. I needed to go. Like I was it was like a whole thing. And I was like, like how could I have done that interaction differently? Like, you know what I mean? Like how like was I supposed to just let her sit down? Because
No,
like
you were not.
that
But
was not
yet,
in my
but yet, what the story I just, what I heard from that is you're sitting minding your own business.
I was.
She's decided that this is where she's going to be by her coming over and
Mhm.
asking you to sit, even, and I'll bet you, as she was telling you, I'm just going to sit here, she was already trying to sit down.
Yes, she was.
Yes, I know. She was already, I'm just going to sit here. No, you're not. Mm-mm. And then he comes up, hand on the hip. I'm going to show her. I'm going to protect
Right.
that. What that tells me, what that takeaway is they didn't see you as worthy of anything other than you were just there in their way. You're an obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And then by a grown man, no, I'm sorry, a grown boy pouring a drink on you.
Mm-hmm.
And then old boy sitting to your side.
He saw the whole
But do
thing.
you know why I could you know why he wasn't on your side? Because they look like him and not you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are more inclined psychologically to agree with people like us who look like us. We are
Mm-hmm.
more inclined. Isn't that fucked up?
That is super
So
fucked.
here you are, like you're probably having a great time, living your best
I
life,
was
doing it.
such a good night. Like,
And just that easy. And that's your story. The story they tell, they probably laughed about that
bitch was in the
for
way.
hours after you left. They probably laughed about that for hours.
And those two probably bonded over it, like on some shit, you
And
know?
he probably, old boy probably took your chair. The minute you sit down, he and old boy sitting next to him are friends now.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Right.
And racism isn't a thing. It
Mm.
doesn't always have to be about race. Come on. And when I hear that pushback, that's from a perspective of never having been confronted with anything racist in your life, because why would you?
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting across the table at dinner with another couple, boyfriend and I, and it was another interracial couple. And then the fella, big, like 6'4", 300-pound black guy.
Mm-hmm.
He looks at me and says,
Mm-hmm.
I've never experienced racism in my life.
Oh. Woo. He
But
said that
yet,
to you?
no, but yet in the same breath, he tells me that his nickname at work that his friends have given him is Gorilla.
Oh no.
But he's never experienced racism
Not an
before.
awareness, like of
The minute I heard that, I was like, I'm checked out. We have nothing more to talk about.
mm-mm.
We have It's like if you don't want to talk about it, that's one thing. But
Like, right.
telling me you've never experienced it,
Mm-mm.
that doesn't even make any goddamn sense.
Not it doesn't compute. No. You know what? Also, I told you I was a babysitter for a little bit, right? And
Mm-hmm,
I had
mm-hmm.
this employer, and God, I hope she doesn't see this, but whatever.
She knows
So
what she did.
listen, she's the type of like white libertarian woman who she just likes to hang out with the help, like, you know. So she was just like, oh, come have a drink with me after, you know. Anyways,
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I
so
got
she
you.
was like, oh, you know, after you've watched the kid, like let's have a couple of drinks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her husband is like this Indian man, straight from India. I don't know his caste, but it seems like he's like up there.
If they hired you to watch their child,
right,
there's
right.
money. Go on.
Right. So he, the Indian man, asks me why Black people don't go to school. And I'm just like, like, I'm just trying to have a drink. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, are you serious? So then, we get into it, we're talking. And like I'm talking about like all this other shit and like, and he doesn't say it, but then he waits until I say it. And also, like sometimes like in the hood, like you just see people like coming up and making money really quickly, and then like, other people are getting, robbed and shot and whatever, and you just
Mhm.
choose which one you want to be or whatever. But that's not even like, I said so many other things before that, and he wasn't
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
oh, until I said that piece. And I'm just like, okay. And then she, this white lady comes along and she's just like, I'm sorry for my husband, blah, 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 blah. And then she goes, we have this friend who works for like, the government and whatever, and lives in DC and blah, 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 blah. And he has this like white wife, and he tells us all the time that he's never experienced racism. And then I'm like, okay, so first of all, he doesn't owe you his story. um, and secondly, he did like he could have just been saying that so that this conversation didn't go any further, because he probably knew where it was going to go. Or, maybe he does actually feel that way, but I guarantee you it's not true. Like,
Mhm.
for sure.
It's easier to be in than not in certain circumstances. Um, I
If he's friends with you, he definitely had some like microaggression that he's not talking about. Like,
uh-huh.
and your husband, stop. Like, just
And then there's some, well, yeah, you have those, and then you laugh your way out of them, or you'll joke your way out of them, or you'll make a comment, but the at the same time you're thinking in your head, no, this motherfucker didn't.
mm,
And I'm still flabbergasted at that statement. When that was said, I don't even know where to go with this.
I had no clue. I was like, what? And I was drunk, so I was like, what is going on? Like,
Girl, what is going, and you're paying me. What is happening right now?
right. That's that's like my catchphrase. Like, I always say, like, what is happening? Like, because it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. It's just
It's a
like, I
lot.
don't even know where to even begin with you right now. So it's like, where, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But
and I have all these tools, I have all this education, but it's like,
you're
what?
blindsided. Yeah.
Like,
You're like, I don't even know. I'm not even prepared to unpack everything that I just heard.
oh,
Because it feels like work when you're not prepared for it. If I go into a situation knowing that's the conversation I'm about to have,
yeah.
it's fine. We can talk all day. We can
Mm-hmm.
talk all day. But if we're out and we're just having drinks and high kicking, and then it's presented to me, it's going to take me 2 or 3 seconds to recalibrate my brain to
Mm-hmm.
get me there. But it's what I do now, so I should always be ready. But you,
I wasn't ready. I was not
and more
ready.
importantly than that,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's a real interesting question. And that feeds into the stereotypes about us all perpetrated through media and what have you,
Mm.
that Black people don't go to school, blah blah blah. But then you'll have to unpack that statement. Why don't Black people go to school? Let's talk about loans. Let's talk about education. Let's talk
Right.
about college readiness. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yeah, let's talk about it. I had somebody bring up the fact they were talking about black on black crime, which is I fucking
It's so,
hate. I
listen,
hate that term.
crime
It's crime.
happens. Yes, and it happens usually with the people closest to you, which are the fucking same people. So like white on white crime, like it's just crime. Like
It's just crime. It's seriously just crime. You came up with black on black crime when, because that became popular in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
when we were flooding predominantly black and brown neighborhoods with crack.
Yeah.
And those neighborhoods, you have these young boys, these young humans out slinging rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an economy. And then a lot of people did a lot. Crack was bad. Am I justifying the crack sales? Absolutely not. Do I think all drugs should be legal? Absolutely do.
Yes.
I absolutely do.
Yes. And you need to have a safe place to do your drugs. But anyway.
I absolutely believe that, because this is the one that drives me fucking crazy. Do you know that we have millions of men and women and non-binary humans in jail right now on marijuana charges?
Right.
And we all, in the same breath, we have millions of people, well, several people becoming very, very wealthy in the cannabis market.
Yeah, in the whole industry of cannabis. Yep. Yes. Yeah. That's a thing that's happening right now.
That's a thing that's happening. That's a thing that we're all witnessing happen. Yeah. I was watching something on the news the other day. This dude had 2 joints in his pocket and spent 5 years in federal prison. He gets out. He has all of this retribution to pay back, but as a felon, he can't get a legitimate job. You miss one of your retribution payments, and a warrant for your arrest goes back up, and then you go back to prison.
Yeah, you go back right. Yeah.
For 2 joints.
Because they want free labor.
They want free labor.
So that's what it is. But also,
go.
Sorry.
No, go on.
So I was just talking to somebody that I am working with right now, and she's in the policy department, and she's working on the Clean Slate Act. Okay. So it's basically like, I think if you get out and then your record is clean for 5 years, it like wipes the slate clean of your crime, and then you can live your life. So they're trying to pass that now. But yeah,
that's a good step. Yeah,
I know, and it's like so slow, and it's like I don't even.
And then,
it seems like when there are bad things, it's so easy to pass them, right? Like the things that fuck you up, like the 3-strike thing, the whole like, what is it? I forget, but whatever. Like all of that stuff that Bill Clinton.
Yeah, super easy.
Right. All of those things are super easy to do. Now, like to undo all of it, we gotta like wait. We gotta like, compromise and like figure out ways to keep the system going.
You know why, right?
If it stops, it'll collapse. But yeah, what?
That's not it. The reason why, remember what we all worship here in this country? Money.
Money, yeah.
Now, when Clinton signed those bills, at the same time, very wealthy people were investing in private prisons. Then they started privatizing prisons, and then it's not the convict leasing. It's called something else. But convicts were producing shit at cheap labor, as always, as we always do. It's affordable to keep people in jail. And as we're trying to change all of these laws and what have you, the prison industrial complex is still increasing. There are, I think the statistic I read is there are more people involved in the prison systems more Black people involved in the prison systems than there were slaves.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucked up. That is fucked up.
That is, yeah.
And this is 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still doing this. This is still happening.
Yeah. My God. Like,
But on a lighter note,
I don't know. Yeah.
on a lighter note, through it all, there
Mm-hmm.
is always joy. There is always creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why the joy and creativity and art and beauty and fashion is stolen from disenfranchised people
Mm-hmm.
is I truly believe you need the trauma.
Yeah,
There's something in the trauma that
that
drives our
causes growth.
creativity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day too. I was like, because like, remember we were talking about how like all of the education that I was afforded was great and stuff like that. But like
Mm-hmm.
while I was in school, like I was
Mm-hmm.
going through a bunch of shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
literally, like so many things, like ACS cases, like a whole bunch of things. Like so and my mom was like constantly like my aunt just constantly like, you're not my daughter, I'm gonna throw you out, like whatever,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I was like, did I need that to like be such a great student? Like, because I was just doing the most in school because like I really just needed to not be
At
in,
home.
yeah, like so I was like, is it, do we need this to like continue to like be us and like live and like thrive and like
I
do
hope not.
amazing shit? Like,
I hope not. I truly believe that when we are allowed to breathe,
mm-hmm,
when we're allowed to dream, when we're allowed to create,
mm-hmm,
there's something in our being, in our struggle, in our generational trauma that
mm-hmm,
sparks that.
mm-hmm,
Now, I've gone through some challenging, complicated, crazy shit in my life, but
mm-hmm,
I know that it was for a greater good. I know that.
mm-hmm.
I'm choosing to believe that. And there's power in the story. And as I spoke about perspective earlier, it's once you hear somebody's perspective, anytime anything comes up, you still have that in the back of your head and it pops up and you're all like, I had a conversation with somebody that I ultimately ended up respecting. I respect their opinion. So
Mm-hmm.
that carries more weight for me than this stupid thing
Yeah.
that I've said. I can trust your lived experience because
Mm-hmm.
I trust who you are.
Right.
But unfortunately, we as BIPOC always have our lived experiences complicated. What I mean by that is every time I walk into a room, well, when I was younger, it doesn't happen nearly as much now because she's almost 50. But every time when I would walk into a room,
Mm-hmm.
there was a look of uncomfortable curiosity
Mm.
when the minute I opened my mouth, my refinement contradicted the assumption of my lived experience you created in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You thought I was one thing. And then I opened my mouth and I started communicating with you.
Right.
And then you're like, well, I'm so fascinated. Oh, is he a safe one? Oh. And that is the one that always gets my eyes rolling. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you didn't know what you were expecting. And so now that I've presented you with this, it's like catnip and I need you to go home.
Right.
So the more super, super like abrasive anti-blackness, I've not experienced very much. It's been more very, very subtle, very lots and lots of microaggressions, lots and lots of sexual innuendo, lots of fetishism, lots and lots and lots of the stuff that just chips and chips and chips and chips and chips away at you. And by the end of the day, you come home and you don't want to see or talk or touch anyone because you feel so fucking violated and dirty. When I would rather, I mean, it's as bad as being slammed up against the wall, inward this, inward that, because have I been called that? Sure, who hasn't? But my question is, why do you always want to say it? If you know the history of these words, why are you so eager to say them? Right? That doesn't make any sense.
Like, doesn't have the meaning for them. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I really just, it's so bad. Like, because it's always brought up, and like, you know, and then like you hear things like, oh, well, if they didn't want us to say it, then they wouldn't put it in their songs. And I'm just like, what? No, that's not how.
That's not how that works.
No, yes.
That's not how that works.
And then the same people who would say that will be like, but I have friends that are Black. And it's like, if you give a fuck about them, why would you want to? Like, stop, just stop.
And no, you don't. You have Black people that you think
that
you know.
You
don't have Black friends. If that kind of shit is flying out of your mouth, you don't have Black friends.
Or like, oh, I do have Black friends and they said I could. And I'm like,
no, you don't. You don't have Black friends. No, they say I'm down. You don't have Black friends.
Also, if they cared about you, they would have told you not to say it. Because like, if you say that to the wrong person,
you're going to get your ass beat.
Right. So they don't care about you. That's not friend.
They don't care about you. And on that, I say, go with God. Go with God. You have a blessed day.
But it's like, and it's like, if you want to make connections with people, right? Like, if that is your goal when you're having a conversation, right? Like, and you're trying to connect, right? Why would that even, like, what in your brain is telling you we should talk about this? This will make us closer. Like,
I'm gonna call him this.
Right. Or like, I'm just gonna say it just to see what happens. Like, that is not building a connection. That's doing the opposite, I think. Like, you're building a barrier between you and the other person. Or
you might be trying to lose some teeth.
Right.
You could possibly be trying to get some dental work done. I don't know.
Oh, you want to see the back of your head real quick.
And perhaps it flies when you think you're in the company of, oh, he's safe or she's safe. She won't say anything. But
those are the ones you gotta look out for. No, I'm kidding.
Don't get it twisted. As friends of mine would say, don't get it twisted. We're not doing that. And I think this was a fantastic conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have anything to plug, young lady?
Oh, yes. So I do. As I was telling you in pieces, like, I work at Exodus Transitional Community, and people when they're coming home from prison. And so I work specifically with the youth, right? In addition, I just got so I was an intern, so it's like a promotion, whatever. Like, my position now is in the CTI, which is the Center for Trauma Innovation. And it's because we got this like $8 million grant from Cy Vance, the DA. And so basically what we are doing is we are having this center that has traditional, like therapy and stuff like that, and also non-traditional things like for example like boxing, yoga, art
Mhm.
therapy, narrative therapy, like I'm sure there's going to be like pet therapy at some point. So there's going to be a whole bunch of things for the community, like in general, because
Mhm.
it's situated in Harlem, but literally anyone from anywhere can come, in New York.
Mhm.
And so we have like four populations that we want to target, and it's immigrants,
Okay.
it's the LGBTQIA plus GNC community,
Mhm.
the youth 18 to 24,
Mhm.
and the population we already work with, which is reentry. So
And go,
yeah,
go on, go, finish.
and there's like a bunch of like intersections there, obviously, but yes.
Uh-huh. I am actually,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to this, I
Mm-hmm.
am the social director of Impact NYC.
Oh,
It's a social organization that combats stigma and isolation associated with HIV.
nice. Oh my God, I think we did something with you guys. I
You
don't remember.
probably did.
Yes.
You probably did.
Oh
And if it was a happy hour, I planned it.
my
Um,
God.
and that would be we absolutely need to talk. I
Yes.
That is something that is near and dear to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's I would love to help out any way I can. All I
Yes.
do is talk about race and HIV, so that's all I talk about.
Yes. Okay.
So we're gonna talk. I would love to talk with any of your humans who would like to share their story of race or HIV or both.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that this would be a wonderful place.
I
And
am
I
so
can't
glad that I
I'm so glad I met
met.
you.
Yes.
I am so glad I met you. You are an incredible young human, and I
Thank
thank you for
you.
all that you
For
do.
you. Yes. And you too. The work that you do is so important.
It's it's fun. I think that if we take the seriousness out of conversations and just talk like girlfriends
Mhm.
and say, listen, these are the things that I'm navigating through. And
Mhm.
it's stupid. It sounds stupid when you say it out loud. It all sounds so fucking absurd. And once you hear how dumb it sounds, if you're continuing to do it, you're just agreeing that you're dumb,
Mm. Mhm. Yeah.
right?
I think so. Like if you're gonna not grow after you've heard some shit, like and self-reflect, then it's dumb.
and and it's okay to A, not know the answers, B, be uncomfortable when you're having these conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and C, sometimes put your foot in your mouth, but immediately accept. um,
Accountability.
yeah, you take accountability for that, and then you immediately change. You shift
Mm-hmm.
directions after that. I put
Mm-hmm.
my foot in my mouth a dozen times. I'm in the process of teaching myself to not use gendered language. And it's real hard because one of my favorite things in the entire world is she and girl, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's just part of the way I speak.
I
And it's
know.
the hardest thing in the world to teach myself not to have gendered language.
Me too.
But it's a choice that I'm making because I know that I have a very loose interpretation of gender.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that others take it serious.
Mm.
And I want to be respectful to everyone. That's all.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna there be times where I slip up in my journey toward where I'm trying to go,
Mm-hmm.
but I will acknowledge when I've done it and move on, not make a big deal out. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you, blah, 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 and just move on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Same here.
Well, I'm going to thank you again for being my guest. I sincerely appreciate your input and your perspective. I'm a better person to have had this conversation.
I feel the same way. Thank you so much. This
It
was
is
great. I feel like refreshed.
good. That is absolutely the right way to finish the rest of your day on a 90 fucking degree day.
Oh my God. Seriously.
I know.